Hey, Jack. Where's mine?
Like the flags.
Yeah.
Oh, Hedgepeth. Hey, Paul from the old neighborhood.
Oh, really? Oh, on there.
In the Cove. Mary Jane. Hey,
Come here, Jane.
Oh, there's my boss, Josh Tucker. Howdy, howdy.
Okay, where's
My
mine?
friend Audrey's mom. Hey, Lou Ann Kelly.
Okay. Oh, I'm gonna get here. Hey, Kathy. Hey, Kathy. I just tried to text you or message you, and it wouldn't let me. If you would retweet this, I would appreciate it, since I'm being shadow banned.
Pete.
Where's my... Thank you.
Michael Swift. Long time.
I don't see it, but I'm not going to worry about it.
What? The highlights, the today's date page?
I was trying to retweet it on here, but...
Going to get going here in just a few minutes after we listen to some
Lincoln Park.
Lincoln Park.
I'm trying to pull up Harris State.
Jeremy, haven't seen you in forever. Every time I do these, I see people I haven't talked to in forever.
Yeah. Alright. That's probably enough. Alright, we'll go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Ides, making the Ides...
March of Ides, episode 6.
Making the Ides great again. We started doing this in March, and we have some new people in here, so just in case you're wondering what the Ides thing is all about, the Ides didn't used to be an ominous thing. It wasn't an ominous thing until Caesar, until the play.
Until Shakespeare wrote the play.
The play. Because before that, it was a time of celebration.
It was the new year for the Romans. It
Right.
was a time of the planting and blessing of the crops and things like that. It was basically their New Year's Eve or their New Year's Day.
Right. And
celebration.
So we started doing the Ides of March episode in March to combat the mainstream media and talk about good things going on that the mainstream media won't cover, but also to talk about kind of synchronous events that have happened in history on the Ides. You know, every month has an Ides. Sometimes it's on the 13th, sometimes it's on the 15th. And this month it falls on the 13th. And so we're going to talk to you about, mention a couple of the synchronous dates and kind of how it relates to modern day. Well, some of the stuff relates to modern day times. Some of it doesn't. It's just kind of interesting. And then I'm going to talk about, in the second part, my blog, Red Pill Sentinel, a couple of stories going on there, and then any questions if y'all want to ask questions. But we're going to start out with a few dates. Lou's going to tell you about some of the birthdays. Let me go to that site on this date.
One of the big ones on this date in history is in 1961, the construction of the Berlin Wall begins. And of course, at first it was just a barbed wire fence around the western half of the city to keep the Eastern Germans from getting into safety into West Berlin, because it was draining East Berlin of all their talent, because they were realizing pretty quickly they didn't want to live under a communist regime. Another interesting note is today in 1997, South Park first aired,
It's still going 21 years later.
and that can be a plus or minus depending on where you stand on those guys. And then there's
Mention the
yeah, in 2015, this is when Sweden dropped the sexual assault charges against Julian Assange due to the statute of limitations. And
I just wanted to say a little bit about that. If you remember, Julian Assange was charged by 2 women with rape, and those charges were later dropped. It was fraudulent. You know, in light of recent events with Jim Jordan being accused of knowing about child molestation that had happened.
Wall-to-wall coverage of the accusations,
With
but
no
now
proof, no proof.
one of the main accusers has recanted, and we're not seeing that anywhere.
Right. And I thought that was interesting because those sexual assault charges were brought against him because he exposed, he revealed secrets that people didn't want revealed. And so it's interesting to watch, you know, the way that the state or the way that the mainstream media will ignore or build up stories.
What's up, Tony?
They'll build up stories like yesterday, Keith Ellison, Democrat, you know, a scandal broke out on him regarding an ex-girlfriend. I don't know if it was his wife.
Ex-girlfriend.
Actually,
The son broke that one, and
Yeah.
then the mom is kind of like, well, you know, he's
and she's got texts to prove it and other
Yeah.
things, and the mainstream media basically ignored it until today, and then even some of them kind of said, well, we checked it out and there's no they're there. Yet these are the same people that Roy Moore, 40-year-old allegations that weren't provable, they covered like it was just so
Yep.
true. And so people need to keep that in mind when you're watching, you know, some of these public figures with scandals against them. Pay attention to whose scandals get ignored and whose get built up. And also, just bringing Julian Assange back up as a topic. You know, I don't know how long it's been since he's, you know, been in isolation, but he hasn't been on the
Yeah.
internet. They took internet away from him for it's been, I don't know, I want to say it's 3 or 4 months now. And love him or hate him or, you know, whatever, he deserves his day in court. He deserves.
And so far, none of his drops have been proven wrong or incorrect.
Yeah.
Same guy.
Oh, it was my first day. Oh, it was your first day on Periscope, the last Periscope. Okay. Okay. But anyway, Julian Assange, you know, there was going to be a deal with him to testify to Mueller back in the day when Comey was still around, and I don't know if a lot of people know that.
Yeah.
Was it Comey?
It was almost done, and Comey nixed it.
Comey nixed it.
But
yeah.
the State Department kind of backed off on what was happening. I think Hillary
He was
Clinton
going
had
to
something to do
prove.
with
He
that,
was
too.
going to show proof that that the hacking, it wasn't a hack. You know, it wasn't the Russians.
Because the guys at the Department of Justice, or I think at the FBI, had worked out a deal where he would come and testify.
Right.
And then Comey nixed it at the last minute, and they were all flabbergasted.
Right. So, you know, don't forget about Julian Assange. You know, I don't know what's going to happen to him. They're saying that the latest with him that they're going to
The
remove.
Senate Intel Committee wants to bring him in, which that's kind of scary because the Senate Intel Committee is about as corrupt as they become.
Yeah.
As they are.
Yeah. So I guess next would be the Minutemen, because August. I mean, even though that it's August 12th, it's not the 13th.
Yeah.
But back in 1643, I think it was. I don't have that site up. The Minutemen were created. They've been around in this country since the 1600s. They were part of the militia, but they really, technically, officially weren't a thing until 1643, and that was August 12th, which is, I know, a day before the Ides. But I just thought it was interesting and synchronous in a way because a lot of what instigated the American Revolution was the Intolerable Acts. And the Intolerable Acts was a group of acts that it was mainly about.
Pretty much inflamed the colonies, you know, like the Stamp Act and the Quartering Act, and you had all of the rest of them there.
You
But
know, which caused the Boston Tea Party, and you know, we kind of have an intolerable acts going on right now with censorship on big tech. You know, I know a lot of you out there know about the QFD filter on Twitter, which will shadow ban you so that only the people that follow you will see your tweets. And that's kind of an intolerable act to me. But the unfair thing about this QFD thing is it's not necessarily, you don't get one necessarily because, you know, you're violating the rules.
Yeah.
You know, if
It's
a whole
because
bunch
of your
of people,
ideology, basically.
well, if a whole bunch of people have you blocked, and the liberals, they have these mass block lists, and if a whole bunch of people have you blocked, then you can get the QFD. And I've seen this happen to a whole bunch of people that I'm following, and it's frustrating because
Well, on that block list, I've seen tweets that I couldn't, you know, stand, and I went to see the people, and I was blocked. And I'm blocked by people I've never interacted with.
And that's because they have these mass block. So the liberals will send around these mass block lists so that, you know, here, block this person. You know, because I'm blocked by tons of people I've never interacted with. And so what Twitter does is they decide, well, I guess I deserve to be blocked because of the quality or content of my tweets. And my tweets are, you know, they're not bad. You know, I'm not attacking anyone, or I'm not violating their rules, and yet I have this QFD. And ever since they've had this QFD, I know other people have felt this, that your engagement levels have dropped. My followers have, you know, my followers count used to climb and climb and climb and get higher and higher, and now it's just going in the other direction. Although, you know, my interactions and engagement with people, even though it's been stifled, it's still up there. So it's frustrating. And to me, these intolerable acts that led to the American Revolution, and I'm not insinuating that we should be going into revolution territory, because we already have the form of government that
we need.
Yeah.
We just got to get back to it.
We just have to reclaim it. And so, in a way, we need, you know, these Minutemen. Back in the American Revolution, you had Minutemen who were, basically, they were a rapid response communication team. You know, at the Battle of Concord, you know, that was one of the first battles of the American Revolution. There were, in a matter of hours, it was like 500 people that they were able to get, you know, crew in one area to keep the British from going and taking their ammunition. It took them a matter of hours just to get 500 people in this one place.
And that's in a day and age where there wasn't,
you didn't have
communication was
Twitter.
not fast. Fast communication was horses.
Yeah. How many of you out there could send out a text and get, you know, 500 people? And the people on the other side, on the left, they have a system like that, because you'll see these campaigns, like when they go after Sean Hannity or Laura Ingraham, or you know, the talking points or the journalists or whatever it is they have goes out, and bam, they, you know, they're, you know, get phone calls.
Take Kirk and Candace at the coffee shop in Philadelphia last week.
Oh yeah, yeah. How did
ago.
they even know that they were going for breakfast? Candace Owens and
There's a handful of people there
Charlie
before
Kirk
they even finish eating to run them out. And I'll take you back to the QFD stuff and the Twitter messing with conservatives. Candace Owens, everybody has probably heard of the New York Times hire Young, what's her name?
Oh, Sarah Young.
Sarah Young. And she's got all these racist tweets out there, and nothing happens to her.
Thousands of them.
I mean, and I've got
And she
screenshots of a bunch of them.
She doesn't have a QFD filter, but I do, and I'm not.
But then you take
doing anything.
Candace Owens tweets, one of her tweets, and all she does is change white for black, and she got suspended by Twitter.
And she even
for
pointed
12
out
hours.
in the tweet that
She
she
even
was
points
just.
out that she's just doing that.
I'm replacing this from Sarah Young's tweets, and Twitter suspended her. I can't remember how long it took. I don't think it was 12
I think
hours.
it was almost 12 hours, and then they said they made a mistake.
It was an error.
It was an error. Yeah, it was an error.
Yeah, but it always seems.
But it happens a lot. I've seen it other people, and I can't remember the specifics, but people will quote somebody that was attacking them in a harsh
right. And then
racial way, but the one who quotes the tweet gets the ban,
suspended, and not the person. It's just
and
like
not the person who did it in the first place.
It's just like with the James Gunn's tweets. You know, the pedophilia
Oh, yeah.
themed. He thinks child rape is funny. Okay, I'm not tweeting out anything like that. I have a QFD ban, and actually recently I had the full ban on me after this past weekend when I was tweeting out story about Phil Bredesen not being moderate. Then I got the search ban on top of the QFD, and meanwhile you have people like Sarah Young who are tweeting racist tweets, and you have James Gunn tweeting about child rape, and I don't know, they think conservatives are worse than, pedophiles.
Disagreeing with them is a bad thing.
Right, and so in this age of information, when we have information at our fingertips, I just thought it is interesting that back in the day when they didn't have this mode of communication, they had like 500 people in a few hours that night, but by the next morning, like around noon, they had, I want to say it was 14,000 people, and it was all just like word of mouth. Paul Revere using the one if by land, two if by sea, and then each person was responsible for contacting they had, it was all planned out. And so
there were even some battles in the southern part of the colonies during the Revolutionary War where these Minutemen would come out, and when the U.S. the American forces would start out being outnumbered heavily, and before nightfall they'd be outnumbering the British because of these Minutemen. So they turned the tide in several battles.
I just want to point out on Periscope, I don't know if any of you are commenting. Usually we can see comments and we can interact, but we're not seeing any comments. So
We can see rude comments. They let those through.
I know, the
It just
trolls.
seems.
So if you're not commenting, I guess that's one thing.
And
But if you are, we're not.
We're also doing Facebook Live from my phone too.
We're not
so that's
ignoring
why.
it if you are commenting. I just
And I
can't
don't see any
them.
comments in case people are watching and commenting. I'm not seeing any comments.
But anyway, back to the Minuteman thing. We kind of need this a Minuteman. Not that has to do with Minutemen. They were sharpshooters. And speaking of sharpshooters, we forgot to mention the birthdays and the deaths on that. But it's Sarah Sanders' birthday today, and also it's Annie Oakley. She was a sharpshooter, and I tweeted at her dad when he tweeted something about it. Sarah Sanders is a sharpshooter with her words, and if you're a Christian, in the Bible that your words can be as potent and powerful as a sword. And so I'm not saying we need a Minuteman for guns or anything, but we need like Minutemen who actually know what they're doing when communicating. They can communicate in a way. I know a lot of you know that the way that you tweet or the way that you phrase things, you can bore people or you can inspire them. And I think all of us, we need to get we need to get better at our modes of communication. And another thing, in light of yesterday's, Unite the Right, which had nothing to do with the right.
30 white supremacists showed up at a march.
I think it was 20. You're being generous, but yeah, and that was with CNN blanket coverage of them all before it. But I was just going to say that your words that you tweet or that you write on Facebook, oh, cool, you saw it. Good deal. The words that you tweet or the posts that you write on Facebook, we need to remember that, especially right now, our words are so powerful that they can get you fired from your job. They can get mobs of people to come after you. They have the power. They have the power to inspire and do good things, but they also have the power to destroy. And so I want the people on our side to remember this and be cognizant of it. And just like Martin Luther King Jr. said, hate cannot stamp out hate. Only love can do that. And I think we need to do that because the extremes on each side are getting so, I don't even know, it's kind of scary what's going on, to see people, the anger that we saw from the left yesterday at the Unite the Right. They were attacking policemen and chanting, all cops are racist, and
No USA and
and I think we need to be thinking about what are you going to do when you're confronted with a situation, because a lot of what's going on now with the left and the right is people poking or people instigating things to try to get you to lash out. And with like the militia and the Minutemen back in the American Revolution, they practiced, like they didn't just have that mode of communication, you know. Thank you. They practiced it. They had thought about it, and they were Christians. And as Christians, I think we need to do a better job of trying to diffuse what's going on in this country. I played the Linkin Park's New Divide, and I thought it was appropriate because we have this kind of new paradigm where nobody cares about the truth anymore. You just care about which side you're on. And as Christians, we're all children of God. We're all on the same, we should be on the same side. And so as far as watching what you tweet or watching, be careful how you word things on Facebook. Try to be the light that shines in the darkness. And just because somebody disagrees with you, you don't have to attack them. And truthfully, don't spend your time on there trying to convince them of something. Just lead by example. I think that was, a lot of what our founding fathers and our ancestors did is and I think that we've forgotten, is just be a lead by example.
Yeah.
And if we don't diffuse the situation in this country that's going on right now, we're going to be entering some dark times. And
Yeah, I mean, there's been some scary situations with some of these. I mean, some of the Trump administration people with their just going out to dinner and things like that. But also, I think we can also remember that there is righteous anger. You can be angry.
yeah,
about
righteous
things.
righteous indignation. There's a time and a place for that. That has nothing to do with, though, attacking. And
Yeah.
your words have the power. I mean, when you walk out in your daily life and interact in the world, and you look up and you see someone smile at you, that causes a chemical reaction in the brain. It makes your day. Or somebody says, gives you a compliment. What the thing about being on social media is it allows you to be behind your keyboard with kind of even though we're more connected than we ever been, we're also at the same time more disconnected than we've ever been.
Yeah.
Because there are things that you would say in a tweet or in a Facebook post that you wouldn't say in real life. And I want to help change that. I want people to the people have turned their back on God, but the men that were fighting the revolution were. It was John Adams that said, "I fear we have not men fit for the times." As far as struggles and hardships, we've got nothing on them, and yet we can be so easily discouraged, and we
Yeah.
shouldn't, because we have it so good.
That's what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, we have it so good, and there are many ways that you can use your words to up your game. You need to be reading things like Robert Cialdini's Persuasion, and what's that other one? How to influence, or I can't remember the name of it, but there's a lot of like Jack Posobiec is really good at tweeting. He's very I call him a happy warrior, and I think Reagan was a happy warrior. So even as you're fighting or trying to,
I'd say Trump is a happy warrior too.
yeah, and he, God, so much hate for him. I understand you disagreeing with Trump. I disagreed with Obama.
There it is. How to win friends and influence people.
That's it. How to win friends and influence people. That was Spencer, right? Anyway, we all have our issues, that we want to win on, and I want people to try and up their game by thinking about how they can use their words better to not only just influence and enlighten people, but to kind of persuade people away from this darkness that we're heading towards, this almost
we
civil
gotta
war.
have a positive reaction to all this hate coming, and the hate from the left, and just constant over the top hate.
And there's hate everywhere. It's
There
coming
is.
from the right too, because I'll see a lot of the people that I follow. They'll be getting in arguments with people and they'll personally attack the other person, or and I'm like,
Yeah.
what are you doing? Are you in this to win the argument by zinging somebody, or
Yeah.
or do you actually want to change hearts and minds? It's actually one of the beefs that I have with Ann Coulter. Ann Coulter is great at selling books, but how many hearts and minds is she changing? Because I don't want to just win the argument, because winning the argument means somebody else loses, and you know how you feel when
Yeah.
you lose an argument. I want to challenge people.
Better persuasion. And then kind of segue into the not punching right.
Yeah.
Because there's too many people on our side that are doing the same thing, trying to win points, and
Right.
like that the one I was telling
Oh,
you about
yes.
earlier. I'm just like, what?
The whole
What do you know?
we talked earlier about the mainstream media and how they treat different scandals differently depending on whose chart. If they feel like it's one of theirs, they're going to protect them. But Brit Hume, this thing about Keith Ellison, I don't know if I have the Twitter exchange, but Brit Hume had said something about the charges
Said
on
he
Keith.
questions the timing of it, and we don't have any proof. And
Yeah, so
somebody
true.
challenged him on it. Why didn't you think about this when y'all were accusing Moore down in Alabama? And he said, I didn't do that. And then the guy put up evidence that he did do it.
Right, and then there's somebody other girl who responded,
Yeah.
this snarky little.
Snarky.
So I'm thinking, okay.
She was glad to help me with my.
Yeah. So I think that the lesson to take away from that is what are you using Twitter for? What's your end goal? I know that Lou and I right now we're kind of trying to feel our way through this. We want to contribute more and create content on Red Pill's Sentinel.
RedPillSentinel.com.
But we're kind of just kind of learning as we go on along and trying to get better as we do. But I also want to be a part of the solutions to problems. I don't want to just argue about our differences, and we can agree to disagree. And I would like people to think about what you're tweeting and ask yourself, and stop running off at the mountain and tweeting. Think about it, read it, and ask yourself if Jesus were standing over your shoulder, would he be okay with that tweet, or would he be okay
Or
with?
could you tweet that to Jesus?
Right. That's a good. What would Jesus do?
Yeah.
Maybe we could have that for tweet before you tweet.
Would he like your tweet?
Yeah. Would he retweet it? Would he reply? Because our level of conversation is in such a dark place right now, and there's so many, and a lot of people that you're arguing with on Facebook, or sometimes they're real people, but there's a lot of people that are actually trolls. They're actually paid
They're just paid to mess with people.
and you're
like
sitting
you
there
and I.
wasting your time. So generally, I try not to get involved in a back and forth. But if you have to, ask yourself: Are you wanting to win the argument, or you want to change some hearts and minds? And so use your words accordingly, and stop contributing to the downward decline of how we treat each other. God is in charge, and so we should be acting like that. And I don't want to contribute anymore to the. I've done. I'm not perfect. I'm sure you could comb through my tweets and find some bitter or snarky, and
Yeah.
I'm trying to be more cognizant and be more aware of what I'm tweeting. Not contribute to what's going on, because it's not good. And so that's all on the synchronous dates. But the birthdays and the deaths. Fidel Castro was he died today, or he was born? This is a
today.
birthday of his. So sorry that Cuba ever
had to
knew
deal with
that name.
guy.
But Sarah Huckabee Sanders, it's her birthday, and Annie Oakley's, and Sarah Sanders is a sharpshooter with her words. Also, I was going to talk about an article I have up on Red Pill Sentinel right now, which I think got me the full shadow ban. Those of you that are from Tennessee know there's an election coming up with Marsha Blackburn and Phil Bredesen. And Phil Bredesen is running as a moderate. And he doesn't have a voting record. I know he was governor. He doesn't have a voting record we can look to, but I was just pointing out, and I was using mainstream media articles and pictures show who his friends are, because show me your friends and I'll show you your future voting record. And everyone on that list is far left. And so after I started tweeting links to the article, I got the full shadow ban, which it's
You
been
got the full ban.
yeah, which has been released now, and now I just have the QFD. But if you would go to I meant to put Red Pill Sentinel in the title, but it's redpillsentinel.com, and it should be the first story that comes up. And you can read what Twitter didn't want anybody to see. The other article before that I'd want you to read is to read about the article that I have written about the QFD filter.
You had two of those, and that second one was
Yeah. Oh, well, one of them was about Twitter's, the board of directors, or the board of directors. If you know, we're all sitting out here wondering why this QFD and the shadow banning only affects conservatives. And so I posted an article showing the board of directors, and it's pretty self-explanatory why conservatives are they look at our beliefs as hate speech, and so it's pretty normal that this would happen, and kind of sad because it looks like Congress is going to get involved and probably have to regulate these social media companies so that we can all
Which is the way
have
it shouldn't be, because they should just leave it open.
we can all have an equal voice, because these, people say, well, Twitter's a private company, they can do whatever they want. Well, how many of you know that somebody just served a lawsuit on WikiLeaks?
Well, the DNC just served a lawsuit
on Twitter. That was
a lot of people, and
that was their means
the
of.
Judge, the judge allowed them to serve, do a service over Twitter to WikiLeaks.
Right.
So that's going to set a precedent there.
Yeah. So
How can you get a summons
if it's
by a lawful way if you're blocked on Twitter?
Right, and if they can do that on Twitter because it's a public square. That's basically Twitter and Facebook, they've become the public square, and
Well, and they keep changing the rules too,
yeah, which always seem to hurt one side. Strangely enough, but it's not strange when you look at who up there is running things. But anyway, that's about all I've got for today. The main thing that we really do these things for is to point out the good news with Trump, and I mean there's good news like the jobs, the economy. Another corrupt deep stater, Peter Strzok, was fired Friday. We didn't find out till today.
which that alone tells you something that was not leaked all weekend.
Right,
So
and
something's up.
And a lot of people get discouraged because the pace of things are moving so slow, but these things take time. You look at all the people that are gone: Andrew McCabe, Comey, Sally Yates.
Bill Priestap.
Well, I think he's still there.
Well, he's been demoted, or
Yeah, he's still
aside.
there. Lisa Page, and then Peter Strzok. These are people that had created an insurance policy to take our president down and to stop him, as he said in his text to his mistress, Lisa Page. So there's a lot of good things going on, and you've just got to ignore the media. And always at the end of these Periscopes, we try to remind you guys to. And Scott Adams has been talking about the 48 hour rule. Whenever something breaking comes out, give it 48 hours, because the chances of there being a correction or something that sheds light on it that totally changes
or
things. So don't get caught up in the whole cycle of breaking news, which is mostly fake news. And I have on Ollie's fake news, enemy of the people shirt. You can go to @ALI, and I think he's got a link on there to get one. But give it the 48 hour rule, and don't be drawn in by the darkness of
And you know what?
the media's reporting.
Fake news is thrown out a lot, and people say, oh, they don't like the news, so that's why they call it fake. Well, just start investigating it on your own, and don't do big stories. Just go Google the story when Trump visited Japan and was with the Prime Minister,
Yeah.
and they were feeding the fish. And look up all the stories about how they said Trump did it wrong and he was going to kill the fish and all this, and CNN led the way on this. And they cut out the video of, it actually showed Trump actually mimicking exactly what the Prime Minister of Japan did.
But they left out that
They leave that out, and then they have all these experts on talking about how all those fish are going to be engorged, they're going to kill
Right.
themselves because they ate too much.
So-
that's a small, stupid story, but they still felt that they had to, target Trump in some kind of negative
Right.
way with
And when
the
he-
feeding fish story.
Right, and when President Trump is calling attention to the fake news media being an enemy of the people, he's not calling the press
He's
or
not
the
saying
media.
the media.
He's calling fake news, and that covers many. I mean, CNN. You think of all these media companies who touted the line "weapons of mass destruction." They lied us
Going
into
into
a war.
Iraq.
And then you look at all the scandals that have happened and how they cover up. They don't talk about some scandals, and they completely, blow up. Roy Moore, 40-year-old, and I'm not saying Roy Moore is innocent. I don't know. But I know there was no proof, and they treated it like it was true. And now you've got Keith Ellison, and she's got text and supposedly a video.
And then somebody tweeted earlier and said, "Wait, are we supposed to believe the women, or are we not supposed to?"
Yeah,
believe
because
the women?
before
'Cause
we were
need some
supposed to believe
consistency
the
on
women
this.
always. So don't do your own homework. Don't be drawn into this President Trump calling the media an enemy of the people, because he's not calling it. Acosta is not real news. He's like, Acosta is the Jim Acosta show.
Yeah.
So I fail to see how, if maybe he's not an enemy of the people, he's certainly not doing us any favors. So keep that in mind. Just you have the internet, and so when a story breaks, and then the mob, the herd is all following one line. My son and my daughter will call me, and they'll say, "Is this true?" And I start looking at it, I'm like, "No, it's totally not true." So stop falling for these breaking news. Breaking news is like a tool to lead teach you how to think a certain way. Stop doing it. You just do your own research. Go look for original sources, and when they break something, which I'm sure they'll have something soon where more Russia stuff. Don't fall for it. Just wait. Yeah, most journalists. Yeah, they're about self-promotion. Most journalists have become the story.
And they're not even journalists. They don't investigate. They sit at
like
in a
Megyn
chair
Kelly.
and they read a teleprompter.
Megyn Kelly she got paid $69 million for I don't know how many years, and I was thinking to myself, they've basically become the Hollywood of news. And when you're paying someone $69 million, you've become the movie star of news, and it's no longer really about the news. Because actually those people that are telling the truth are on Twitter, and they're being shadow banned. And while the Red Pill Sentinel is, small potatoes, it's compared to a lot of things. I'm not going to report anything on my blog that's not true. And if you can prove that it's not true, I'll correct it. And so they're paying Megyn $69 million to do a debate in which she's going to stump the Trump.
Yeah.
And I'm not making any money doing what I'm doing. Telling the truth.
Along with that, just try to get yourself out of the Democrat Republican thing.
Yeah.
Because it's, there's some
good
some
on
good
bad on both
Republicans
sides.
out there, but I'm talking about a Republican establishment, the parties at the state level, and especially in D.C. They're all playing parts, and all these guys on TV like Juan Williams on Fox and other people like that, they're just playing parts.
Yeah. And
they're just, that's what they do
are.
to
They're
get paid.
theater. It's all theater. And actually, politics is theater, too. If you ever get involved locally or at the state, you can really see how it's just state. It's just all theater. Somebody had just asked, what did we think about the blue wave in November? And, I really don't know. There's a lot of people that think that we're going to lose and all the energy is on the left. I really don't know.
But it's also conventional wisdom.
Yeah, and everything's different now.
Conventional wisdom, to me, is usually not very
Conventional
wise.
wisdom said that Jeb Bush, who spent $150 million and couldn't even win one state, was going to be our nominee, and that Hillary, who spent, God, did she spend $1 billion? I'm not sure.
They spent $1 billion on the Democrats.
Money doesn't win elections anymore, and so that's another thing I would tell you is get involved in your. How many of you even voted in the last primary? Like our primary here was the beginning of August. Most of the people I know didn't vote, and all politics is local. That's good. That's interesting. Norway's more conservative than we used to be. Wow, that's 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 disheartening, but good for Norway.
Thanks for the encouragement.
Yeah, thanks for the encouragement, Norway. No, but get involved locally and pay attention to what's going on, because there's just as many detrimental things going on in your own backyard, which affect you more, and you actually have more power there. And make sure that you're getting people out to vote. I know that Jack Posobiec was talking about reigniting MAGA 3X, and for those of you who don't know, yeah, that's true. MAGA 3X was basically, I call MAGA 3X, it was the get out the vote arm of the GOP, because during the campaign in 2016, we discovered that the GOP really wasn't doing a whole lot to get the vote out, and a lot of people were...
Their offices were dormant, basically.
Yeah, and once we brought light on it, they started to change it, but the MAGA 3X movement was get you and 3 other voters to the polls, and also we held like these flash mobs. I held 2 here in Memphis and Clarksville, and Jack's talking about reigniting that. I hope that we do. If we do, I want to be the leader here in Shelby County. But there's so many things that you can be doing. The president is just one man, and so whether you like him or hate him, he can't make or break things. It's actually what the people are doing or what they're not doing. So ask yourself what you're doing, and what are you contributing. And you can't just be sitting all day on social media, because that actually doesn't move it can move the needle, but it matters what you're doing in your lifetime, and I think there's a lot of difference about the revolution, and maybe even up to 100 years ago, that the people of America, especially Christians, were more involved in politics than they were. I mean, it was Christians that fought the American Revolution. It was Christians that created this country where we can freely worship and practice our religion, and yet now most Christians, they stay out of politics. They don't run for office, and so when that happens, no wonder these politicians are as corrupt as they are. So I would encourage my Christian friends to just get involved in the political process, because
maybe just one quick thing is, everybody that's watching, ask your representative about unseal the deals.
Yeah, the slush fund. Do y'all even know that Congress has a slush fund? I think last year they paid out like $1 million, or I might have that wrong.
It was higher. It might have been.
A slush fund that whenever there's sexual harassment suits brought against them, they can use this slush fund to pay off. And it was how many people?
It's like 200 something, and it's both.
And they're
sides
sealed.
Of the aisle.
The records are sealed, so you can't see, and it's taxpayer money. 17 million slush fund. Wow. Call your representatives and ask them. Here's the thing that I tried to do.
I've asked mine a couple of times. I need to ask them some more.
Yeah.
Trent Kelly, Mississippi 1.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't answered me.
I called my David Kustoff, and the person on the phone had heard about the scandal, but he did not know where David Kustoff stood on it. And my big thing, and what I'm going to be pushing here soon, is I'm trying to get people to confront their leaders about the slush fund. They don't have to admit that they have had money paid out for them, but if they haven't, can we at least clarify that so I can use the process of elimination to root out the ones that have had? And if you have a representative that doesn't want to tell you, that makes me think that he's had some money paid out, and so we're being led by these corrupt people. But it's only, I don't know what people expect, because the Christians...
They're voted in, they're elected.
The Christians have left that part of America to a godless society, and this is only necessarily what happens. And the smartest among us and the most righteous among us don't want to delve into it, because politics is dirty. But if we leave politics to itself, you're going to have corrupt men running the whole system, and if you want to change it, then we have to do something about it. Downfall of society and attack on families. Yeah, it's a godless society, but we have let it happen.
Yeah.
Let me give you an example of that. At the Shelby County Commission and the Memphis City Council, they both several years ago came up with ordinance to remove saying the prayer before their meetings. Memphis, what they did is they give a disclaimer, like, so basically they negate the whole prayer before you give it. They give this disclaimer, but Shelby County said no, and that was because more people in Shelby County cared about it, showed up, and got involved. So your voice matters, and you need to care what's going on in your local community, because what you're doing or not doing is going to be left to your grandchildren, your children and your grandchildren. And right now, they're not going to be left with as free of a country as we are. And if you look at the persecution of Christians, what's it going to be like 20 years from now if we don't stand up for our beliefs? I'm not looking for a theocracy. I'm just looking for some representation that our country was founded on Christianity, and we need more Christians involved in this game. So anyway, I think that's about it. Next month, it's on the 13th again,
Yeah,
I think.
I believe so.
Next month, the Ides will fall on the 13th again, and we'll be doing this. Thanks. Oh, awesome. I'll send you a DM, Kathy. Thank you. Oh, that was a repeat. That was a bot. He copied everything that other person said word for word.
Huh.
Oh, so there's Russian bots in my Periscope. I feel flattered, but anyway. So on the 13th of September, we'll do the next
Episode 7.
episode. Yeah. And as we get, as the campaign season really starts revving up around the midterms, I may start doing some more Periscopes to draw attention to certain topics. Go to redpillsentinel.com and read that article that got me shadow banned. Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Read the article that got me shadow banned because apparently they didn't like the information I had there. But until next time,
And go to Twitter and see us. It's at Yvonne Burton and at Lewis Everett 3.
it's _ Yvonne Burton and at Lewis Everett 3. Right. And remember to keep those tweets and those Facebook posts positive and inspiring and uplifting, and so that we can quash this, the division that's going on in this country.
And I've got a thread a little bit about this on Twitter
Yeah.
that I pinned on my Twitter account, and I
It's a
put
good
it
one.
on Facebook also.
You need to read it. Because love trumps hate. Anyway, thank you guys for joining, and we will...
Thank you guys. Haven't seen you guys in a long time. A bunch of you. Beth, April. A bunch of guys I haven't talked to in a couple of years.
Yeah, awesome. So we'll until next time.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.